It was always at exactly 3 a.m. that Elara Blackwood would lock her door from the inside. She lived alone at the far edge of the town in a house where no one ever came, and no sound ever stayed for long. People used to say the place felt wrong, but no one really knew why. Inside her room, the air was never still. It always felt occupied. That night was no different. Elara stood quietly in front of an old mirror, staring at her reflection for longer than usual. Something about it didn't feel right anymore. Her face looked thinner, her skin pale, and her eyes carried a strange emptiness, as if something inside her had already started fading away. She slowly raised her hand and touched her cheek. It was cold, unnaturally cold. And then, without warning, the temperature in the room dropped. Her breath turned into mist, and a silence fell so heavy it felt like the walls themselves were holding it in. Behind her, something shifted. Her shadow moved, not with her, on its own. Elara didn't panic, she didn't turn. She simply closed her eyes as if she had been expecting this. "You're late," she said quietly. For a moment, there was nothing. And then a voice answered, "I am never late." Elara took a slow breath. There was no fear in her face, only acceptance. Because this was not new. This was something she had chosen. Power had brought her here. Control, influence, fear in the eyes of others. Everything she had ever wanted had come through one thing, the entity she had called Virulith. But power like that never comes free, and her price was paid every 4 hours. "You want something again?" the voice said calmly. Elara opened her eyes and looked at her reflection. "I want more power," she replied. There was a pause, then a quiet, almost amused laugh. "You don't get power," Virulith said. "You pay for it." The air thickened. The shadow behind her deepened, stretching unnaturally across the walls. "I will give you what you ask," it continued slowly. "But every 4 hours, I take what is mine." Elara already knew that. She had always known. But she still agreed. Because she believed she was in control, because she thought she could stop it whenever she wanted. She was wrong. The room fell silent again, and then the shadow stepped forward. And everything disappeared. The next morning, they found Elara inside her locked house. She was still alive, but barely. There were no wounds, no signs of struggle, just a body that looked drained, as if something had been slowly taken from her piece by piece. Her eyes were open, but there was nothing behind them anymore. From that day on, the house remained closed, but it was never truly empty. 3 days later, people in the town stopped going near it. Not because of stories, but because of what they felt, a strange pressure, a coldness in the air, like something inside the walls was aware of them. And every night at exactly 3 a.m., the front door would unlock by itself, slowly, silently. Around that same time, a new girl moved into the town. Her name was Lena Carter. She didn't believe in fear or curses or anything like that. To her, those were just stories people told to make sense of things they didn't understand. Until one night, she saw it from her window, Elara's house, and the door slowly opening on its own. No wind, no movement, no reason, just opening. Something about it felt wrong, deeply wrong. But curiosity is a powerful thing, and sometimes it's stronger than fear. A few nights later, she found herself standing outside that same house. The door was slightly open, just like before. The air around it felt colder than it should have been, heavier, like stepping closer meant stepping into something unseen. She hesitated just for a moment, then she stepped inside. The house was silent. Dust covered everything, but it didn't feel abandoned. It felt like something was still there, waiting. At the end of the hallway, she saw a door, half open. Elara's room. Lena moved toward it slowly, her breathing becoming shallow. The closer she got, the harder it became to breathe. Finally, she reached out and pushed the door open. The room was empty. No furniture, no signs of life. Only dark burn marks on the floor. And in the center, a deep, black stain, as if something had stayed there for too long. Lena stepped inside, and suddenly, the door behind her closed. Softly, but completely. She turned quickly. "Hello?" she called out. No answer, but she could feel it now. She wasn't alone. Something was behind her, close. Too close. "You came closer." The voice was right next to her ear. Lena froze. Her heart dropped instantly. "Who's there?" she whispered. For a moment there was silence. Then slowly, "She called me first." The shadows in the room began to shift, stretching along the walls, forming something unnatural, something tall, broken, not human. Virilith. Lena shook her head, her voice trembling. "I didn't call anything." There was a pause, then a quiet whisper. "That is enough." The temperature dropped sharply. Her breath turned visible in the air. "You feel it, don't you?" The voice continued. The space she left behind. Tears filled Lena's eyes. "No." "And now?" The voice moved behind her again, closer, colder. Her body stopped responding. She couldn't move, couldn't scream. "Every 4 hours, Edward," it said, "I return." There was a long silence, and then, softly, "And now you will answer." The next morning, they found Lena inside the house, collapsed on the floor, alive, but barely. Hours later, when she finally opened her eyes, something felt wrong immediately. She didn't look scared. She didn't look confused. She just stared ahead, quietly. Then, slowly, she smiled. A strange, unnatural smile. Too wide, too calm, and in a voice that did not belong to her, like she whispered,
"I want more."
And in that moment, it became clear. It had never left. It had only been waiting. And now, it had simply changed its host.